The spring transfer portal window officially opens up this Tuesday. Now, of course, players can go ahead and announce their intentions to transfer and essentially start shopping around their options. We, of course, know that Florida State will be active here in this stretch, both with additions to the program as well as some departures out of Tallahassee. Now, one question I've gotten a lot is, what positions does Florida State target in the portal? What positions does Florida State still need to address? So let's talk about it. FSU already took a large number of transfers in the winter portal window, more than I thought, but I still think they could take up to 4 or maybe even 5 more. Now, most importantly, I think Florida State needs to add another quality defensive tackle. The starting group, including Josh Farmer and Daryl Jackson, is already an elite group, and I think the Noles will have the top defensive line in the ACC and possibly one of the best in the country. But I think they could benefit from adding a quality depth piece just to help bolster that position, just to bolster the depth, and especially when considering how much Adam Fuller likes to rotate, you can never have too many bodies. Now, I also think they would take a linebacker if a good one did come up. Luckily, DJ Lundy decided to stay in Tallahassee after a little vacation to Colorado, and they've already added Sean Murphy, the transfer linebacker from Alabama. I think they do feel good about the younger guys in the room as well, like Juice Cryer, Blake Nicholson, but that's so far from a proven room, especially outside of DJ Lundy. So I think they would definitely try to snag a quality linebacker if one were to hit the portal and be the right fit. Now, wide receiver is kind of a tough one, and my opinion on this is kind of swayed back and forth, especially since spring practice started, and we've gotten some updates out of some guys. Florida State did bring in Malik Benson, who was the number 1 overall JUCO player before ending up at Alabama, and then, of course, transferring to Florida State last December. They've also brought in Jalen Brown from LSU. That's 2 major speed additions to that room, but pretty unproven at this level so far. That on top of Destin Hill going down with an injury that'll likely have him out until the fall camp. Your room kind of comes down to Kentron Portier, who flashed at times but had issues staying healthy himself, and then Hakeem Williams and Ja'Kai Douglas. So definitely a ton of potential for the receiver room right now, but some question marks to say the least. Now, I could also see them taking a tight end if one were to come up, as well as maybe an offensive lineman, whether that be a tackle or a center. So let's talk about a few specific names that we know Florida State would be looking at in the portal. For starters, it was announced earlier this week that Nigel Kelly, a defensive end from Miami, intends to enter the portal. If that name sounds familiar, it's because he was actually a Florida State commit at one point and a top 100 player in the 2022 class before he ended up flipping and signing with the Hurricanes. He's been good at times there, but struggled with injuries, but at 6'5", 255 pounds, that's an elite frame and definitely worth taking a look at. Especially considering what Florida State has shown to do with transfer edge rushers, and with Florida State finishing second in his high school recruitment, you got to think that Florida State's at the top of his list. It's also kind of worth noting that he's recently followed a few Florida State players and Florida State defensive ends coach John Papuchis. Now, another name that might sound super familiar is Jason Zandamela, a 4-star offensive lineman from the 2024 recruiting class. This is a guy that was trending heavily towards Florida State before USC kind of swooped in and got him. He has also announced his intentions to enter the transfer portal, and here's another scenario where the Noles finish second and maybe at the top of his list as well if he does officially enter this coming week. He is from Florida, so the California move always seemed a bit odd to me, but maybe he's decided he wants to come back home. He is young, but definitely an elite talent, and if Florida State was willing to sign him out of high school 3-4 months ago, you got to think they'd be willing to take him through the portal now. Obviously, we're seeing a common theme here of Florida State landing guys out of the portal after finishing second in their high school recruitment. Guys like Jalen Brown, Marvin Jones Jr., Earl Little, and now even potentially adding a guy like Nigel Kelly or Jason Zandamela. Showing that in today's world, it does matter to finish second in recruiting, and maintaining those relationships is important because you could very well end up with those guys in the future. In the case of a guy like Jason Zandamela, it could be the very near future. Now, of course, in true fashion, it's not all going to be additions. There will be a few guys that decide to enter the transfer portal and leave Florida State. We've heard that Joshua Burrell and now Greedy Vance plan to enter the transfer portal. Neither one of them is super shocking. Burrell had just gotten buried on the depth chart and really should try to go somewhere where he can get more reps and try to help his career. Now, Greedy Vance is a bigger loss, but still not super shocking. We've been hearing that him and Earl Little Jr., the transfer from Alabama, have been battling for the nickel position, and maybe he just sees the writing on the wall and doesn't want to be a backup for another year. I can't say I blame him, but the depth at DB definitely takes a bit of a hit. Now, I've also been asked if this means Florida State will look to add a DB through the transfer portal to replace that spot, and I'm honestly not sure. I feel good about our DB room, and as much as I like Greedy, it's not like his presence wins you games or his absence costs you games. But that being said, if the right fit pops up in the portal, a talented or experienced guy that is willing to come in and battle, I could see them taking one. It's just a matter of who pops in and how they feel about the room at that point. There's already lots of movement happening, and the portal isn't even officially opened yet, so it's only going to get crazier in these next couple of days. One thing is for sure, though, we will definitely keep you guys updated on all the portal news in this window, just like we did in the winter portal window. So you definitely want to make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you can keep up with all the action and all the guys coming in or out of Tallahassee. Really appreciate you guys tuning in and talking some more Florida State portal news. Could be an exciting next few weeks for the Noles. But now I want to hear from you guys. How do you feel about Greedy Vance transferring? What do you think Florida State's biggest need in the portal is? Let me know down in the comments below, and let's talk Noles.